So my name is Mel, and I used to think in these 20 years of human resources and people and culture that it was all about stopping people doing the wrong things. I was one of those terrible, terrible people that would draw up the 10-page code of conduct. Who's got one of those in their businesses? Yep, and then I would sit in those horrible disciplinary meetings and tell people what they'd done wrong all day long. Well, then I started my journey into organisational culture. Vaughn and I started Vend, and I realised that I'd got this all wrong. It wasn't about stopping people doing things. I needed to think of myself as an architect. And I started to think about building foundations and solid structures with pillars to hold up roofs. And then what I'd do is hire amazing people and put them into the structure and let them just go free. And it makes sense, right? Because in our businesses, we spend a lot of time trying to hire the very best people that we can, and then we pay them lots and lots of money. So telling them what they can't do all day long doesn't make a lot of sense. What we need to do is build an organisational culture where they can do really well. So this is the story of what I learnt at Vend. Initially we had 2 people, and then we grew to about 250 or so. I looked after the people and culture side, and then took a real interest in leadership and organisational culture in particular. So can I ask a question? Put your hand up if you think your company doesn't have a culture. I've got a couple of hands. Well, I've got news for you. People often say that because they go into the office and they sit there quietly, not talking to anyone. There might be no music. The boss might go into the office and close the door, and you don't hear from the boss all day long. But every organisation has a culture. Even that organisation, that is a culture. So even if we think that we don't have one, we do. Basically, an organisational culture is how we do things around here. It's what we have all implicitly agreed is normal. So at Vend and a lot of the companies I work with, we have a culture which is based around speed and agility and innovation. And you probably want to have a culture like that as well, because you want to be able to go fast. You want to get that new breakthrough idea. You certainly want to outpace your competitors. So at Vend, we had a culture around speaking up in meetings. We had blameless post-mortems so that we could learn, always be learning and improving. But if you look at the example of Uber, Uber's got a culture as well, which has been getting itself into trouble a little bit recently with the idea of winning at all costs. And of course, they've run into a few problems with sexism in the company as well. So a culture can work to your benefit, and it can also work against you. The thing is also with Uber, and I was talking to someone at one of the exhibitor stands earlier today, your culture needs to evolve. You know, we were talking about, well, the key thing for me is not building a culture, it's maintaining a culture. Well, really, we don't want to maintain a culture, we want to evolve it, because your company is always evolving. So you need to think about, well, which parts of the culture are serving us? Which parts do we need to leave behind, and which parts do we need to amp up? A culture can be a real competitive advantage, especially when we're in technology, and a lot of people can replicate our code. They can see what we're doing and copy us pretty quickly. But a culture is hard to replicate. If we've got a great culture, it helps us to stay ahead of our competitors. It helps us to innovate, it lets us be fast, and in an environment where top talent is really hard to come by, it attracts people to us. So now I'm done with that intro. I'll tell you about the 4 things I'm going to talk about today and, that are important for building a great culture. Firstly, have a really strong vision. Secondly, figure out your normal. Thirdly, create a brain-friendly environment. Got my brain here today. And lastly, focus on leadership. And if we do these things well, if we get these inputs right, then the output's going to be a great culture. It is a bit like snakes and ladders though. So with a culture, we've got to aim high, aim for the sky. And sometimes things will be going really well. It'll be like we're climbing up the ladders and we'll be super happy. And sometimes we're going to catch a snake and go, and we're going to feel like we're back at where we started. But the thing is, with building a culture, you keep going. You just keep going and keep going. So I'm going to talk about point number 1, and this is about having a strong vision. So I see a strong vision as being like a magnet where it pulls your team towards it. So it's so important to have a vision within your team and make it crystal clear. Everyone in your organisation should know why the hell you go to work every day. What are you trying to do? And if you don't know that in your business, go and find out. And if you're the boss, well, go away this weekend and think about how you can articulate it and make it really, really clear. Talk about it all the freaking time. So you want to be talking about it definitely when you onboard new people. If you have a monthly meeting where everyone's getting together, talk about it then. Talk about it at your Christmas parties. Talk about it at your, quarterly review meetings. And make it the arbiter. So I'm working on a big project at the moment about helping techies, people at work, and I've been talking to a whole lot of senior tech execs, New Zealand and Silicon Valley, etc. And this one guy who's a senior exec at Intuit, just a little bit of gold. He said, Mel, what happens is we get two people and it's like me versus you, and there's this conflict there. And he said, what I've learned is that it needs to be you and me testing our ideas against the vision. So we let it be the arbiter. And I thought, geez, that's pretty clever. So it's really important to have a strong vision. Secondly, you've got to figure out your normal. So if you and I have different businesses, your normal will be different to my normal. So what's right for you? This is different ways of achieving our vision. Is it important for us to go really fast, or is it more important that we are really detail-oriented? If I have a business and I'm in the gaming industry, it's really important for me to be speed and quick and innovative. If I have a business and I'm creating software for a plane in flight, it's more important that I'm precise and don't make mistakes, okay? So exactly the same with you. So think about your behaviours. What kind of behaviours are important at your business? What's important to you? And if there are any founders in this business, think about this, what's important to you when you grow your business? What qualities of yourself do you want to bring into it? And what does your strategy dictate? So you'll get businesses and they'll be doing about the same thing, but they can get there in different ways. So in the top car here, we've got something that's pretty sturdy, can, just roll straight over its competitors, nothing's going to get in its way. And in the bottom car, we've got something really speedy and agile. Instead of rolling over people, it's going to outmaneuver them. So we can get we can use different behaviours to get there. Now, if you're not too sure what your normal is, and we're kind of talking here about values, then you can figure this out for your business. I call it the value sandwich. It's pretty simple. You ask people at work, what's important to you? Why do you come here every day? That's the bottom of the sandwich. And then at the top of the sandwich, you look at your strategy and think, what's important around here? Like the whole speed and agility versus quality and precision, whatever it is. And then all that yummy stuff in the middle, that's your values. So where the strategy and people's individual value sets meet, those are your core values. And sometimes your strategy will need some behaviours that aren't there already. Well, those are your aspirational values. So this is one way that you can create your values if you haven't already. And then use it to hire, use it for onboarding, and make it visual so that it's easy to talk about. So that's point 2. Alrighty, point number 3. This is where I get my brain out. So this brain is really important because when we're creating cultures and when we're creating great places to work, we actually want to create a place where these brains can do the best work that they can. We all have one of these, and if we're feeling threatened or overwhelmed or uncertain, this thing can't work well. It's not going to be as creative, imaginative, or productive as it could be. So we want to focus on our peopling. We want to help people speak up, encourage healthy conflict of ideas. We want to stay out of the drama, or if we fall into it, get out of it quickly. And all of this will help us to become a great place to work. So Google have done this big Aristotle project, and they've found that the #1 contributor to effective teams by a country mile is psychological safety. And psychological safety is essentially that you feel safe to speak up, that no one's going to rubbish your idea or put you down, okay? So this is what we want to create in our cultures. So there are 4 types of people, and we've got some cards here. So we've got 4 types of people, and in a minute I'm going to ask you to show me the card of the type that you feel most represents you. But I'll explain them first. So we've got our analysers. So these are people who love data. It's really important for these people to do a great job. They like detail, they're really considered. When an analyser makes a decision, you know that it's been well thought through. Okay, so they're really important to have on your team because they're going to dot the I's and cross the T's. Then we've got our accelerators, the red people. So these people, they've got a real action focus, fast decision makers. It's all about the results. So quite often we'll find entrepreneurs are accelerators, and they don't really care so much about the detail, they just want to get straight to what's important. Then we have our connectors, our green people. So these are people that we might see as the glue in the company. They're great at building relationships. You want them on your team because you know they're really good teammates to have. They're a people advocate, and they can see all angles of a situation. And then finally, we've got our energizers. So these are the people that bring the energy. They like to feel, they'll use their gut feel and their intuition. They are the ones that can walk into a team and motivate people, and they can really inspire people to action. So we have our 4 types. Now, sometimes we can spot them. The analysers might say, let's check the data. The accelerators, they don't want to do that. They're just like, let's just decide. The connectors are, well, why don't we talk to some other people about this? And the energizers might say, this feels about right. So, guys, this is your time to shine. What I want you to do is have a look in the pack here and choose the colour that you think most represents you. And I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to wave it around. I'll choose mine. Okay, are we ready? Are we ready? Yes, okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Wow, we've got quite a few yellows, we've got quite a lot of blues. Wow, we're like a beautiful Technicolor rainbow. We've got quite a nice mix. That's great, thanks guys. So this is really important because we actually need all of our different people in our organisation to do well. But it's really helpful to know when we are in tech and we're dealing with different people, it's helpful to know how to get on with each type of person. So if you've got analysers in your team, show them your thinking and your proof. Show them that you've thought things through. If you've got an accelerator, don't do that. Just get straight to the point. If you've got a connector, talk to them about the fact that you've thought about the people impact of this. And if you've got an energizer, well then bring some energy to the conversation and talk about how you feel about it. Now, with these interviews I've been doing, I also spoke to another guy, and he gave me a brilliant example of how this works in real life. So he was the head of the product team, the product and engineering team, and he was talking to someone in customer support. And this person in customer support said, there's a big problem with this part of the software and we need it fixed up. And he said, what are you feeling? What you're feeling is right. So this guy had been on the phone to a customer who was really grouchy for about half an hour. So of course he had a strong feeling. And then he said, why don't we look into the data and we can help you prove if it's true or not. So you see what's happening. He's acknowledging this guy's feelings, but then using his strength as an analyzer to look into the data. And what they found out was that, yes, this feeling was true because it had had a profound effect on him, but actually there was something else in the data that they could fix, and by fixing that, they were going to reduce 50 calls a day into the help centre. So by using the right language here, we get to a great result rather than unnecessary conflict. The other way that this can be helped, it can be used, is in workplace design. So making sure that you have a space for your introverts to relax and withdraw, and for your extroverts to go a bit crazy. Communication channels, what are you using and how, and your work practices. So if you're always requiring people to speak up in meetings, think about how that sits with the different types. Right, number 4, focus on leadership, really important. So we need to define leadership for your team. And this means focusing on results and on people. So when we're focusing on results, we want to look at what are the key measures that we know that this person is doing well and measure them. When we're focusing on people, pretty much if we're focusing on someone's development, especially because we're hiring a lot of millennials these days, I figure that's going to really fill that bucket up nicely. Aim for consistency. So sometimes I joke about this with some of my clients, but they go, but I'm an asshole. It's like, well, just be an asshole consistently. So if people know what to expect from you, then that's wonderful. If they get a different version of you every day, that's really not that great for leadership. And as leadership, that's the key thing that's going to define culture. You can do all this other stuff as much as you like, but then if you do the opposite of what you put, the values you put on the wall or whatever, you do the opposite of that in your behaviour, that's going to be the culture that you're going to get. I think a rule of thumb is to be as transparent as possible. I believe in sharing financial results in business because everyone is there to help you. If they don't know how you're doing, they can't help you as well as they might. And finally, let other people in. Learning culture is so important in tech because there's always so much to learn and things move so quickly. Now, when you let people in, what you're doing, let's say you admit to people that you're not perfect, that you're still learning things. And by you saying that, it's okay then for them to say, oh, I'm not perfect either. I'm also learning things. And you create this environment where you can learn together. And when people are free to talk about what they still have to learn, then all of a sudden you can do learning. If you're not free to talk about the areas that you're not that great in, no one else is going to talk about it and you're not going to get the same learning that you could otherwise. So in short, folks, these are the 5 things. Have that really strong vision. It's like a magnet, and let it be the arbiter. figure out your normal. So figure out what people value in your business and what behaviours are going to get you to where you want to go. Create a brain-friendly environment so we can get the best out of those clever people that we employ, and focus on leadership. So, thank you very much. I might have finished early. That's a first.
Good. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Well done, Mel. Okay, we've got some time for a few questions. Thank you for sending those in. Keep them coming. If there was one innovation or strategy that tech businesses could put in place to improve a company's culture, what would it be?
One innovation or tech strategy? Okay, that's a good question.
Sorry, one innovation or strategy that tech businesses
one innovation or strategy that tech businesses could put in. Well, I'd have to say talking to people about how they can people with each other, or helping people understand, get this awareness of who they are and the fact that other people are different. That would be the first thing. Second thing, I really think that having this emphasis on learning is so important. So if you put it in your mind that you're going to create a learning culture in 2018 within your businesses and figure out the 2 or 3 things that you need to do in order to make that happen, I think that that's going to really, really help your business succeed.
Very good. How about any thoughts on how to change a firmly ingrained unionized culture?
Oh, that's a good one.
A tough culture. I mean, do you encounter any of those?
Not anymore, no, but I used to. So how to change? Okay, yeah. Well, I guess in my experience, a unionised culture is often there. The union often comes in and gets prominence when there's an absence of trust between the employees and the managers. And so if I was in that situation, my first instinct would be to build trust. And I believe that you build trust through transparency and by being open, by sharing as much as possible, by talking about the fact that we're all fallible, and then slowly building that trust over time. That would be my approach, because in these things here, I'm a connector, so I always look for the way through the middle. Other people would probably say, well, just throw it all up, like you got to scramble some eggs to make an omelette. But that's personally not my style. I would try and ramp up the trust.
How do you align people strategy with company strategy?
Oh, easy. This is a much easier question. Yeah. So when you look at your company strategy, you just see, like, as a company, what do you want to do? And then I look at like a couple of things. But first of all, what behaviours do we need to be doing really well to make that happen? And what structure do we need? So let's say, for example, that you've got a high growth strategy, and this is the place that I deal with mostly. So you've got a high growth strategy. So then you think about all of the things that are going to either help that high growth strategy or the things that could get in the way, okay? So immediately when I go to high growth strategy, I think, well, do we want to be able to retain our top talent and put them into these new jobs as they come up, or do we want to hire new people in? So if we want to retain our top talent to keep that sort of culture embedded, then we need to really focus on development. We need development plans for everyone, and we need to pinpoint our emerging talent and what roles they might go into in the future. Likewise, if we're going offshore, then we need to start thinking about how can we get our employment brand out in Australia or Singapore and start building the stories around this, and how can we get people ready to take that independent move, perhaps to go over there and start up an office. So it's quite clear for me, but it's just perhaps a different way of thinking.
Right. A few more questions just quickly. Don't forget to vote if you want to if you want to have your say. A really good question here. I'm not a manager. How can I contribute to changing our culture to a high-performing one?
Okay, great question. So really, I think that culture kind of starts from the top. So definitely, if I've got any CEOs or founders in the room, you're basically you're responsible for the culture. But we're not all CEOs and founders, right? So then what we need to do is we need to try and influence things to happen. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing it, but I guess the best thing is to start within your area and try and get an area of high performance within your business. So you can, you can talk to people, get on the same page, make sure that your team really knows what it's aiming for, get crystal clear on the goals for your team and the expectations of how you're going to work together, and focus on creating a centre of excellence in your business. So that would be one approach. The other approach would be to go and influence other people, find the key people in your business who have got the ear of the CEO and talk to them and influence them to then talk to the CEO.
Nice. A couple more questions now. What's the impact of leaders who behave either intentionally or unintentionally in ways that do not support the prevailing or desired organisational culture?
Well, that's not very good, in short.
Right, well that's the end of that conversation. Okay.
Yes, I think, hell, we're all human, right? So we all occasionally make mistakes. I think of leadership. I'd say in leadership you've got like a bank balance. And as a good leader, you need to make lots of deposits all the time. So you've got to be putting money into your bank account all the time. Because sometimes you accidentally withdraw money because you slip up. You do something wrong, you make a mistake. You don't want to go into overdraft. So those are leaders with good intentions who make mistakes. But if you've got a leader who's intentionally acting against the culture, then you need to, again, try and influence some people or have a heart-to-heart with that person, because I've found anyway, within businesses with a strong culture where you get someone who's not a culture fit, they're normally not very happy, and sometimes you need to start a conversation around that.
Fantastic. I think we'll wrap it up there. Could you please join me in thanking Mel Rowsell?